him take it off.
I have to do the rest of it like this?
Ew.
Wait, is my hair did? Makeup! Isn't that a thing?
You know, sometimes I wonder how much longer I can do this.
For today's episode, what is this called? Do we have a show called? Is this called something? Ah! Alright, so today we're going to talk about RVUs, relative value units, or RVUs. RVUs are a great way, certainly not a perfect way, but a great way to evaluate a group practice. So if you're in part of a group practice, whether it's in a hospital or an outpatient setting, how do you know if your clinicians are doing a good job, Jaden? This is a two-way talk.
I know, I'm listening. I was just grabbing.
And you don't have a microphone on, so you're going to sound awful. Anyway, so like there's lots of clinicians that might have a great bedside manner. The patients might rave about them. They might have the respect of other clinicians for what their accomplishments have been in their career. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually bringing in productivity reimbursement for the services that they're providing, right? So they could have issues where they might be billing out the wrong level for their E&M codes. Maybe they've previously been part of an audit and now they're scared to bill right to the level of what the services that they're providing. So they underbill. We have some people, I'd say about 70% of clinicians that I've worked with in the beginning, they underbill. 70% underbill. So they're not making nearly as much as they should be making.
Crazy.
Are you disturbed by that?
That is so, I'm not going to be able to sleep at night.
Right, I'd say about 10% overbill. So that means what percentage is getting it right, Jaden?
What was the question? Wait, can you go back? Math makes me nervous. I genuinely black out.
Enough. So 20% actually probably get it about right. So the vast majority are not billing properly, at least for the E&M levels. So what you want to make sure you do is not just figure out how many RVUs that someone is producing, but how many they're producing per hour. Once you do that, then you can compare them to each other. You can compare it sometimes across specialty. Doesn't matter if it's an MD or an NP, a DO versus a PA. You basically figure out how many RVUs are being earned per hour. That's how you figure out productivity. So you could have somebody that is extremely slow, does not see a lot of patients, despite trying to move to a quality model. We are still in a fee-for-service world. There's no question about it. That volume drives money. So if you want to make sure that you can, like, you might have clinicians in your practice that have great manners, the patients love them, they seem to be someone that's great in your practice, but you're actually losing money with the work that they're doing because maybe they're not seeing patients as promptly as they should be. Maybe they're billing out too low for the work they're doing, so they're with the patient for an hour and they're billing out a low-level code. Sometimes too, so some of the hooks that you're going to find with doing the RVUs, when you compare them, also you want to share them with each other. You want to make sure I know I'm jumping around, but the clinicians, typically competition is something that works pretty well with clinicians, I've noticed, because they like bragging to each other about how they're better than each other. So you can make it kind of a competition, but also if you have something where, like, you know, you have one clinician that's seeing lesser acuity than another clinician let's say for instance in a hospital setting, you have, you know, an MD that's doing a lot of initial visits for the patients, they're actually doing the admissions for the patients, and you have, let's say, an NP that's doing subsequent care, so they're seeing them on day 2 or day 3. In this case, the NP should be seeing probably twice the amount of visits that the admitting physician is seeing. So that way the RVUs actually all even up. If you have a nocturnist, there are ways to make sure that the nocturnist can compete, even though you might think that they're not going to have as heavy a load, they're going to have a higher acuity. There's other areas that nocturnists can bill for, especially when they're called in for low-level issues in the middle of the night. Very brief note, still can make billing out a level 1 and still going to bring you in like $100 plus per patient. So lots of great things you can do there, and then once you have the productivity per hour, then you can compare how everyone's doing and what they're bringing in. You should have a target of where you want them to be. So if they're at, let's say for instance you have a target of 3 RVUs per hour, then that's your target, and maybe you're going to say we want to make sure everyone in the group is at 2.5 RVUs per hour. But what's our break-even point? Let's say our break-even is at 2.0. Now anyone under that 2.0 is actually costing you money, so they are hurting the group. So this is a way to evaluate productivity. It's not the only thing that's important, but certainly in many instances it's going to be a huge indication on who's going to need training on documentation and billing to make sure that everything that's going out is efficient, or to have conversations about the amount of patients that are being seen per day, like the patient per hour or patients per day that are seen, however it is that you measure it. Also make sure you have certain pieces into consideration. Some clinicians, let's say you're working in the hospital and you have a medical director that is going to be pulled aside for quite a few meetings, that time has to be taken out. You have to make sure that the R.V.Us, when you're stacking them up against the amount of hours, it's not just the shift hours, it's the actual hours of clinical time when they're working and servicing patients. And that's basically how you want to get that process started, and then you can go from there to kind of drill down and find out what actually is the most important piece to figure out how to improve your practice. Now, do you know what R.V.Us are, Jaden?
Yes, I can't wait to...
Because R.V.U stands for?
Respect. Wait, what was the second? Okay.
Like, what grade did you get through? Your memory is worse than mine. You can't remember R.V.U.? Well, other people now are going to know how to evaluate their group, the members of their group. Because another thing too is, like, if you're in a 1 or 2 doc practice, you have a really good sense on how everything's being done. But once you get to the area where you have like 4 docs or 6 docs in a practice, that's when things become very difficult to figure out who's doing well.
Right.
On the business side.
You're totally right.
Overstayed my welcome, but I think